Is the fuse very far away?
It's just a little.
I mean, how long to get it?
I don't know.
Trent, you were really worried about being roasted, huh? You didn't want it publicized.
All right. Let's do it.
I asked him to do that.
Wait for the picture.
Are we waiting for the picture?
Yeah.
Yeah, we do have video, right?
I don't think he's gonna do that.
I think he is.
You think he is?
Neither.
I thought he said
thought
it
he
was
said
just
video.
audio.
Yeah. Wait a couple minutes.
Give him one more minute.
You know, we paid Trent's movie actor contract, or SAG, whatever the union is, and so we want our value out of this.
I'm okay with
Screen
it.
Actors Guild,
Yeah.
that's what I was thinking of, yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll just start. Welcome to the City Council meeting of May 15th, 2017. In accordance with LB 898, a copy of the Open Meetings Act is posted in the back of the chambers. And first, let us all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silent meditation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Agendas are available just outside the chamber door. If anyone needs a parking pass, you can please see our city clerk. The order of the business of the City Council is as follows. The clerk will call the items listed on the agenda under public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on an item should come forward after the clerk reads that item. The applicant and those in favor should speak first, followed by those opposed. The applicant may then make one short rebuttal. Testifiers should clearly state their names and addresses. Testimony is limited to 5 minutes per speaker, and the timer will sound as a courtesy after 4 minutes. And after testifying, if you could please sign in on the pink sheets listed laying next to the microphones. After all public hearings, the council will vote on resolutions and items listed under third reading. And on the second and last Mondays of the month, immediately prior to adjournment, anyone may speak on any issue not on today's agenda nor planned for a future agenda. Courtesy and decorum are expected of all who come before this body. No one may approach city staff without permission from the council, and please no applauding, booing, or other expression of support or opposition except through your testimony. All cell phones should be turned off and private conversations taken outside the chambers. During the week, if you have any questions regarding an agenda item, please write or call or contact any one of us here at the City Council. Teresa, please call the first item.
Our first item is our public hearing consent agenda, items 1. That's it.
You need a
And we
motion
did
to-
have a request to withdraw this item.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by John, seconded by Carl. Discussion? This was withdrawal from the library board. They'll be bringing a revised proposal in the next meeting. Please call the roll.
Camp,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Eskridge,
Yes.
Fellers,
Yes.
Gaylor Baird,
Yes.
Lamb,
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Next then are our public hearing liquor resolutions. Those giving testimony are asked to come forward, raise their right hand for the clerk to administer the oath. After the oath, witnesses shall state their names and addresses. I'll call items 3 and 4 together. They're the application of O'Neill's Buzzsaw 3 Bar for a Class C liquor license at 5250 Cornhusker Highway and the related manager application of Jackie O'Neill.
Please come forward.
Jackie.
Oh, you
Right
just-
here.
Right here. at the
Yep.
microphone? Yeah, perfect.
Yep.
You're the
And yes, raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth as you verily believe it to be?
Yes.
Thank you. Just state your name and address.
My name is Jackie O'Neill. I live at 1018 Gordon Drive in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Welcome. Could you please tell us a little about your application?
I was approached by a family member that wanted to lease this bar at Oasis Hotel at 5250 Cornhusker Highway. And as she was preparing to, she realized it was going to cost more money than she had. She was going to borrow money from us to get this liquor license. And we had met with this Paul and people at the hotel when she was meeting. So when she backed out, I thought, well, I've got 2 sons that live here in Lincoln and my husband and I. that we could probably run, try to run it. It's a nice little bar, be kind of cute, something to do as a family project. We did own a bar years ago in Waterbury, Nebraska, that was O'Neill's Buzzsaw too.
Okay, all right, thank you. Questions from council members? Cindy?
Thank you. Thanks for coming today, appreciate that. So how familiar are you with the bar at this location?
I've been hearing things, but I was never familiar with Cornhusker Highway. I've been here for 10.5 years, so that part of the town is even new to me, the Havelock area, so.
So have you seen figures on the bar? I think it's been quite some time since it was opened, and there's some problems with the rooms there and so forth. Have you seen figures on what they anticipate revenues would be?
Oh, it's supposed to be big, huge, but I guess I don't really understand how I'm to answer that question. As far as the hotel, I've seen one room, which was shown to us when we first went with my niece, but, you think that you have a small clientele or just some kind of regular people that would come in that either staying at the hotel or living in that neighborhood at some point, that we'd have a few customers.
I see. So have you only been to the location one time, or?
Oh, we went 2 meetings with my niece, and then I went another time, and then since then, we've been going to clean it up and make, we purchased a new cooler and getting things looking really good, and, to make it, it's actually just a nice little room, would be a really kind of a neat little bar, so,
And so you'd be leasing that from the owner, is that correct?
yes.
Have you entered into a lease agreement yet?
Have we reached an agreement? Yes.
Have you entered into a lease agreement
Yes.
yet?
So the lease agreement is $1,000 a month, all utilities paid. And then there's a ballroom where we could one night a month have it for free to have like a country band or maybe comedian, something like that, that it would be free to us.
And is your lease contingent upon you getting a liquor license?
I mean, it should be. I'm not so sure about that.
Okay.
I didn't know that it would be difficult. I guess when I went into it, I didn't realize that there'd be any controversy.
Okay. Thank you.
Carl?
Yes, Ms. O'Neill, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
You had indicated that you have already had some expenses in terms of your work and cleaning up the place and purchasing coolers and some other things?
Yeah, we purchased a big cooler for a glass front cooler. We purchased things like light bulbs, locks. I'm not too sure as far as what the value would be. You'd have to ask my manager over there.
Okay.
I'm gonna say roughly 5,000? No?
Please.
Would you like to come to the dais also and speak and introduce yourself?
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth as you verily believe it to be?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
And I'm
Just state your
Dan
name.
O'Neill, also 1018 Gordon Drive.
Okay.
And really, the money we spent so far is, we did spend $1,000 just to make the agreements, so he didn't look for other people. And then we bought a cooler worth $1,300. And then otherwise, just odds and ends. The rest of it's all furnished. It's got a couple other coolers ready to go, and all the tables and chairs. It's all set up. So basically, I think right now we do have about 3,000 invested. But I mean, if something would not fall through, of course, we could sell the cooler and this and that. But we might be putting the cart before the horse, but we want to be ready to go if and when we get a license. And the one cooler, of course, that Paul had, it just wasn't going to work. So, we wanted to do it right. If you're going to go into business, start out right with proper equipment. And of course, liability insurance and all that I've got pending. I just have to call my insurance agent as soon as, if we get a license, to liability, et cetera.
Any further questions? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I might add too, there is a new barbecue place put in. When you go in the entrance, right to the left is it's called Poppy's Barbecue. And he doesn't look very busy now, but we're hoping between the two businesses will help each other. But that's all remodeled very nice. And like we're saying, this lounge, when you go in there, you're really impressed with that room. I realize the rest of the motel, it certainly isn't, what do you call it, a 5-star, okay? But this room where we would have our activities and bar is real nice, so.
I'm actually glad you brought up the Poppy's establishment, because in our staff report, it was mentioned that there's an issue with that area not being within your control of your liquor license, and that it might require an amended application. Were you intending to do that?
When I talked to the officer, we got in an agreement that we certainly wouldn't let anybody leave the establishment with any container, open container at all. So we didn't want, we should have revised that, because we don't want the lobby. What we'd want is periodically to have something like a wedding or something going on in that ballroom with no containers to leave that building or that room. So it would be too hard to control people that you can't see, so it was very smart of the officer to let me know that wouldn't be such a great idea.
So,
John?
yeah, well, I'm just gonna add, that's what we're trying to amend, is just the physical bar itself in that ballroom. Nothing around the swimming pool and all that if it gets open, because you really can't control if somebody is in a room way to the north side of the building. If they come down and they're 20 years old sitting in the big lobby, that'd be out of our control, of course, so, as it would be at any motel, in town, so. So we are gonna amend it just for those two areas, period, and nothing to do with Poppy's, yeah.
John?
And I think my question goes to that ballroom or that second area. If you have that license, and I believe in the testimony earlier, Ms. O'Neill, you were saying that you would have the ability to use it once a month for a band or some activity. Is that correct?
Yes, he says that he charges a rent of $1,000 for usage there. But he also says that, we get some control over what happens, because I would not allow, I want country, I want weddings, I want kind of a family atmosphere. And right now, I don't think he has anybody to really set up these things except for the lady that works at the front desk. So, I would hope that we could come into an agreement that we certainly have a say over what's gonna take place over there. We couldn't allow them to use, or to be there with our liquor license and take any chance of something happening.
And that's where my question is leading to, is that it would be licensed full-time in that ballroom area. And so I was curious what would happen if an event is held there and they bring in alcohol or something, because that would be violating your liquor license.
Right.
So
Well, that
it sounds like-
definitely should not happen, and as far as I know, it will not happen, because Paul and I are under agreement, but it's not in writing, of course. But he knows that he's not allowed to do that, and he's not allowed to rent it out or lease it out without prior approval from me.
is that stated in your lease with him?
No, it would be probably a good idea to revise that.
And I'm not sure how we would be able to approve your license today with that ballroom, because you don't control it. And I know at the State Liquor Commission, you have to, if I'm not mistaken, present a map of the premises you're asking to be licensed, and that you have control over it, and you have a lease for those premises.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think, well, that's it,
I
we
understand.
went through the lease quite a while ago, so, it might be in there. But the deal is, if he rents it for a wedding, we're supposed to run the bar and be in charge of, watching for minors, et cetera. It isn't like he would rent it for a wedding and he'd just be in charge of it. We would actually run the actual bar for the wedding reception or for a band, so it wouldn't be Paul, yeah. And we wouldn't allow, that ballroom, like, we probably wouldn't allow him to have like a pole dancing contest or something, It'll be for, nothing risque, et cetera, yeah.
And then the other line of questions, we've been given a report here, and apparently there've been a number of police calls there throughout the motel and so forth, and where you're part of that overall, I mean, I know you're not licensing the whole motel, but you're part of that complex.
Go for it.
What observations can you make, and the difficulty here that, and the number of requests for public service, public police officers and so forth?
Well, we've heard in the past that there were some problems, you know, with maybe with the drug clientele, et cetera, but, you know, we have nothing to do with that. The times that we've been, we're basically just interested in opening up the bar, not what's going on in the motel rooms. That's really not our business, but we have heard there's been police called there.
But we haven't seen
More,
anyone.
but I think more for that problem than for liquor problems, you know.
We really don't see anybody there. It seems like there's, I don't know who's living there, but you don't see people. Of course, we don't go there in the evening.
Trent?
I have a staff question for Investigator Schaefer.
You guys may have a seat while we talk to staff, if you'd like. Thank you.
Investigator Schaefer, Lincoln Police Department.
We'll have some fun for the last time here. We've had several calls for service that are listed in the staff report on this in
Correct.
the last year. 235?
Yes.
Okay. And we have a letter from the assistant police chief that says the environment of this property is not suitable for a liquor establishment. This is not in any way a reflection on the applicant. It's just the location, which is problematic. What would your recommendation be for us today on this? I mean, denial sends it to the Liquor Commission for an enhanced hearing. They won't get that if we approve this today. It will go straight to the Liquor Commission. Is this an item that we should hold over to re-see their lease? So that somebody else can decide it, not me?
I think I would defer any questions about recommendations to city law.
Okay. Jeff?
Tanya.
Tanya's here.
Tanya, hey. I have two questions. One, there's probably no state statute that says anything about the ability for us to regulate a lease between a liquor establishment and the owner of the building, right?
No, there's nothing about regulation, but they do have to have a valid lease that gives them control over the area that they're requesting to license.
Okay, so what would your recommendation be on this one? Should we hold it over, or should we approve it with a condition and have that condition be met before it goes to Liquor Commission?
I think that depends on the issues that you're either thinking can be solved or issues that you're concerned about. You won't be able to hold it over and then address it again next week because I think we're running upon a time limit.
Okay.
I think it was supposed to come to you last week when I was gone, and so you're getting it this week or close to that. So I think you're at your 45-day limit, so you're gonna have to approve or deny your recommendation.
Okay, so in recommending denial, if we recommend a denial today, they would have the chance to go and plead their case in front of the Liquor Commission and have those lease items worked out before they go to the commission.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
all right, thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak to this item? Seeing none, please call the next item, Teresa.
All right, next is item 4, application of Myers Wine for a special designated license to cover an indoor area measuring approximately 48 feet by 72 feet and an outdoor area measuring approximately 150 feet by 45 feet at Sheldon Art Gallery and Sculpture Garden at 12th and R Streets on June 3rd between 5 p.m. and midnight.
Kevin Meyer, Myers Cork and Bottle, 1244 South Street, Lincoln.
Please tell us about your application.
This is a wedding reception. It's a private rental that Sheldon does on occasion for various weddings and private groups. Since this is typically a public domain, we felt it important and necessary, and I think legal, to apply for the SDL. Now, it won't be open to the public during the time of the wedding reception. They do have adequate staff and security to ensure so. That's really about it. It's pretty straightforward.
Any questions? Carl?
Yeah, this is unusual. So how's the area gonna be screened or controlled?
The sculpture garden itself is sunken,
Okay,
and so there are various entry and exit points.
all right.
And they do have adequate staff that they've hired through Sheldon to police, or I guess, enforce those entry and exit points.
Okay.
Any further questions? Thank you so much for coming down today.
Thank you.
Okay, would anyone else like to speak to this item? Seeing none, Teresa?
Madam Chair, I'd like to move denial of items 3 and 4.
Second.
Moved by John, seconded by Trent. Discussion? Go ahead.
If I may, and maybe my colleagues want to comment too, I think that we've got a challenge here in that it appears the leased premises are not inclusive of the ballroom, or there are a number of legal matters that haven't been done, and so that puts the police department and other city officials at risk in that regard. And I think there are also some concerns about the complex, the motel, that just with 235 calls, I think, was it last year or whatever, that's just an enormous strain on public resources, and so those would be the two comments I'd make.
Cindy?
Thank you. So I want to just make it clear that no one pointed out any problem with Miss O'Neill's application as a manager of a location and a liquor license, but you have to have a place where the liquor license is granted, so we have to deny both if we're going to deny one, and enable the applicant then to have a full hearing, work these things out, and have a full hearing before the liquor commission. So.
Any further comment, council? Okay. Trent?
I don't think we need to deny both. I think we can just deny the application and not the manager application. Right?
Could we get clarification on that from the attorney?
Well, because you're saying if there's no application approved, then there's no need for a manager.
Yeah.
Don't want it on their record.
Oh.
Yeah.
I don't know that if there's any technicalities as to whether or not you can approve it or not, but the liquor commission will look at them together. I think that we have had an application in the past that you've denied the location but approved the manager, but it was at the time of the hearing, it pretty much went together, because the manager would be asked questions about the location and the operation. So you could certainly do that, but I don't know that it makes a difference one way or another.
So
So,
does that
Mr.
change your
Fellers,
proposal?
are you suggesting we just deny the application and then and just?
Just do both.
I'm sorry, please?
Just deny both.
Okay, that's what my motion was.
Okay. All right. Teresa, please call the roll.
Camp,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Eskridge.
Yes.
Fellers.
Yes.
Gaylor Baird,
Yes.
Lamb,
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
And Madam Chair, I'd move approval of the other third item on the Myers application.
Second.
Moved by John and seconded by Roy. Discussion? Please call the roll.
Camp,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Eskridge.
Yes.
Fellers,
Yes.
Gaylor Baird,
Yes.
Lamb,
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Next then is our public hearing resolutions. Item 6, accepting the report of new and pending claims against the city and approving disposition of claims set forth for the period of April 16 through 30th, 2017.
Would anyone like to come forward to speak to a claim? Please come forward then. Just state your name and address and fill out the pink slip after you're done testifying.
Ryan O'Toole, 1101 Sumner, Lincoln. I have a vehicle that was towed before a 24-hour law period back in October of 2016. The time I had to go get it, it was gone. I had no recollection where it went. It took me a long time to figure out where it went. By the time I found out where it was way much money to get it out of the impound too than what it was worth. So that's where I'm at, stuck right there. So.
Okay. Right. Any questions? Carl?
Yeah, so could you explain a little bit about, the car
Well,
was
I
parked
had
on the
I had
street?
a flat
or-
tire, and it was out in Air Park Industry off of Van Sickles property out there. I guess it was in the way of traffic or in the view of traffic, but it was literally on the grass, off the road, not on a highway, interstate, anything like that. So
And do you know how long it was there before it was towed?
it was 10:30 at night when it happened. The next morning, about 9 o'clock, is when I got a hold of Van Sickle, the owner, a company guy, and they said it was about 9 o'clock the next morning when they towed it. So
Okay, so you learned the next day that it had been towed?
I went out to go get it, and it was gone.
Okay.
And that's when I called Van Sickle, the company, and they said, yeah, the officer was out here at about 9 o'clock a.m. and they towed it.
Okay, yeah.
So
And so this was October last year?
October last year, I
Okay.
think beginning October 3rd, I think, last year, I think.
Okay, so then after you learned that the car had been towed, what happened next?
I didn't have the money. It was a lot more than what I expected to get it out. So I didn't have the money. I told them I couldn't get it out. And then it took me 6 months to figure out what had the next steps I had to do. So, and that's where I'm at now, is here.
Okay.
So
Is there anything that the city has done wrong in terms of towing your car?
yeah, there's a 24-hour tow period if it's not on an interstate or a highway. So they have to give you 24 hours to go get your vehicle or get it out of the way or
Okay, and,
such.
and you've indicated it was there
Yes, it was
10,
there.
11 hours, something like
Yep.
that? Okay.
John?
If I may, was this on private property or on the
It
city?
was on that company's front lawn by the road. It was actually in his grass.
Okay. We may need a legal clarification, but I think there where it's on private property, if it's not authorized parking, that the property owner has the right to tow.
Well-
Mr. Kirkpatrick, maybe you could elaborate? Pardon me.
You can have a seat while we talk to our attorney.
Okay,
Thank you very
thanks.
much.
Jeff
Sit right here in
Kirkpatrick,
the
Lincoln
front.
City Attorney. I can't speak to the ownership of the property. What I can tell you is that this claim was originally filed with the state of Nebraska. They said, well, it's within the state limits, it's not our problem. He then filed it with us, and we did an investigation. The Mike's Towing, which is the company that towed his truck to the impound lot, was called by the Nebraska State Patrol. So the city of Lincoln had no involvement with this towing. And that's why we sent the letter to him saying we're gonna recommend denial. That's why we're recommending the city council deny his claim. And I can sympathize with him that it seems like he's getting the runaround because he went to the state of Nebraska who said, no, it's not us, it's the city of Lincoln. He comes to the city of Lincoln, we say, no, it's not us, it was the state patrol. But in fact, it is the state patrol. I think that the state office did not do a thorough investigation of the claim before they told him to go to the city of Lincoln. So our recommendation to him would be, go back to the state of Nebraska. I'm not making any judgment as far as whether the state was negligent or not. All I'm telling the council is that the city of Lincoln had no involvement in this particular situation.
So,
John, or
okay,
Carl, then Jane.
so he indicated that there's a 24-hour rule on towing vehicles off of I don't know if this is in the right of way or what, but is there such a law?
Well, I'm not gonna express an opinion as to whether the state of Nebraska is liable or not for having the truck towed.
Jane?
That was my question too.
Okay.
And I'll tell you, I mean, we didn't investigate further as far as where it was parked at because we had no involvement. And so it wasn't necessary to determine the ownership of the property or how long it was there. We just investigated and determined we weren't involved, and that's why we're denying the claim, or recommending the denial.
John?
Would you clarify, just so the general public understands what the laws are, but is there such a thing as a 24-hour time that a vehicle can stay, whether it's on a public right-of-way, and not be towed? Because
I haven't done any research on that, to tell you the truth. It wasn't something that was pertinent to this claim. But
you
if
might get
if
back,
you'd like
because
to
I don't
know,
want,
I
I don't
can get
want
back
the
to you on
public
that.
to think if they leave their car in an unauthorized area that they have 24 hours to get it. I don't think
Right,
that's
well,
the
and
case.
certainly, as you pointed out, if it's private property, then if you pull off of the public street onto private property, there's no 24-hour rule there. You're trespassing if you're parking. If I were to park in your driveway,
Mhm.
there's no 24-hour rule. You could have me towed immediately.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking on the public right-of-way, say at a meter, or you've parked just on the
Yeah.
street, and but it's, I know we've got a lot of meters or whatever posted, you have to be out by 4 o'clock for traffic control in the downtown area, and I'm just not sure, I've just never heard the 24-hour, but I don't want the public to be misinformed.
Well, and certainly if you're talking about being alongside a highway or a street, law enforcement is gonna assess whether there's a traffic hazard or not. Doesn't matter how long you're there, if there's a hazard, they're gonna try to get you moved immediately.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does the applicant? All right. Would anyone else like to come forward to speak to a claim? Okay, seeing none. Teresa?
All right, we'll go on to our public hearing ordinance's second reading. Item 7, text amendment 17007, amending Title 27 of the Link Municipal Code by repealing Section 27.26.090 regarding the location of buildings, structures, parking, and access drives, and the preservation of required open space in the O2 suburban office district whenever the O2 district extends further from the street than any abutting B1, B3, B4, H2, H3, or I1 district, and amending Section 27.72.130 to delete an identical provision in subsection E, and repealing Section 27.72.130 as hitherto existing.
David Carey with the City County Planning Department. Here on behalf of the applicant, I don't believe the applicant is here. This is a proposal to allow for further development of the Madonna campus, in particular the parking area, if we can get that to come up. I don't think it's coming up right now. But this is a very odd point in time in the past where we created text in the code. This is probably a good example of not creating text for a specific condition, because what has happened is that condition has now gone away. Madonna has now purchased 2 office buildings that help create the condition that the text was created for. And then this need and requirement for open space in an odd situation that is area that is beyond, in this case, a B1 zoning district adjacent to O2 zoning. The area is actually very appropriate for expansion of their parking area. And this text is pretty much obsolete. There is no other application in the city that it would be useful for. So it's something that we felt like it was something that it was actually a very positive cleanup into the zoning code, and it also allows for the project for Madonna to move forward.
Any questions for David? Thank you.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to testify on this item? Seeing none, please call the next item, Teresa.
All right, next is item 8, change of zone 17006, application of Heartland Homes for a change of zone from AGR agricultural residential to R3 residential on property generally located at Southwest 27th Street in West Day.
Hi,
Welcome.
I'm Marcia Kenning with Riga Engineering, 601 Old Cheney Road, Suite A, and I'm here on behalf of the client. Pretty simple change of zone. It's adjacent to R3 zoning, Heartland Homes Southwest, first edition. That it's just all gonna now be part together, so.
Any questions from the council?
Yeah.
Carl?
Thank you, Ms. Kenning, for being here.
Sure.
So this will just be land added to the existing housing development that's currently there?
Right, the community unit plan that's
Okay.
in place right now, there's
Great.
it already was passed through planning commission, so it's a part of it, and then the change of zone is just added on.
And there'll be single-family houses
Yes.
put there? Okay,
that
approximately how
match.
many houses, do you know?
There's 7.
7, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming down today.
You bet.
Would anyone else like to testify on this item? Seeing none, please call the next item.
That concludes our public hearing. We can vote on the one item. Item 6, the report of claims. This was introduced by Raybold.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded by Trent. Discussion?
Yes, I think, I believe they appreciate Mr. O'Toole coming before us this afternoon, as the cities would be liable if there were any negligence on our part or the part of staff, and there's no indication that that happened here. If there was negligence at all, it wasn't a city agency who was involved with it, and so denial would be appropriate.
All right. Teresa, please call the roll.
Camp,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Eskridge.
Yes.
Fellers.
Yes.
Gaylor Baird,
Yes.
Lamb,
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Our public hearing ordinances second reading are items 7 and 8. Ordinances third reading. Item 9, amending chapter 5.04 of the Lincoln Municipal Code relating to alcoholic liquor to allow the city clerk to administratively approve certain outdoor special designated licenses and to amend and/or remove various sections to clean the code up. Introduced by Fellers.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded by Roy. Discussion. Go ahead.
I move to amend with motion to amend number 1 and 2,
Moved by Trent, seconded by Carl.
and both are they the same?
No, the first one says the location is
Okay.
is property owned, leased, or controlled by the city. And the second one says the location is property owned or leased by the city. This restriction shall not apply to property the city has leased to or authorized to control by another entity.
It gives you 2 different options.
Oh, okay.
So if you would like the museum.
Why did I move them together then? Man.
I was trying to jump up. So it just gives you an option of if you want the zoo, the Children's Museum and other places like that to come before council, you would do number 1. If you just want the areas that we maintain control of all the time and not those that we lease, and I use lease pretty broadly, then you would do motion and amend number 2.
I will drop motion to amend number 2 from my motion.
Agree.
Okay. So we're entertaining motion to amend number 1. Any further discussion? Okay. Please call the roll on motion to amend number 1.
Camp,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Eskridge.
Yes.
Fellers.
Yes.
Gaylor Baird,
Yes.
Lamb,
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
Now on the main motion, please. Any further discussion on the main motion? Please call the roll.
Camp,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Eskridge.
Yes.
Fellers.
Yes.
Gaylor Baird,
Yes.
Lamb,
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Next then is item 10, amending the pay schedule for the employee group whose classifications are assigned to the pay range, which is prefixed by the letter M, by changing the title and pay range of class 1497 from microcomputer support supervisor in pay range M02 to technology support supervisor 1 in pay range M01. Introduced by Fellers.
So moved.
Second?
Seconded by Jane. Discussion? This one was a pretty obvious need for cleanup with microcomputer being referenced repeatedly in our code, and we're upgrading our language. Please call the roll.
Camp,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Eskridge.
Yes.
Fellers.
Yes.
Gaylor Baird.
Yes.
Lamb.
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 11 is amending the pay schedule for the employee group whose classifications are assigned to the pay range, which is prefixed by the letter C, by changing the titles of class 1495 from microcomputer support specialist I-1 to technology support specialist 1 and class 1496 from microcomputer support specialist 2 to technology support specialist 2, introduced by Fellers.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded by Carl. Discussion? Please call the roll.
Camp,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Eskridge.
Yes.
Fellers.
Yes.
Gaylor Baird,
Yes.
Lamb,
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item number 12, amending the pay schedule for the employee group whose classifications are assigned to the pay range, which is prefixed by the letter C by creating the classifications of traffic sign worker, traffic technician, senior traffic technician, engineering technician, senior engineering technician, and biosolids coordinator, introduced by Fellers.
So moved.
Second.
Second by Carl. Discussion? Please call the roll.
Camp,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Eskridge,
Yes.
Fellers,
Yes.
Gaylor Baird,
Yes.
Lamb,
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Last then is item 13, amending Title II of the Lincoln Municipal Code relating to establishing an appropriate funding level for the city's police and fire pension plans, introduced by Christensen.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded by Trent.
I move motion to amend number 4 and number 5. Number 4 is to clarify that the ordinance change is not intended to impact the city's 2017-18 contribution to the pension fund. And motion to amend number 5 is to allow a larger cushion before the city council's contribution to the pension fund is reduced, and to clarify amendments to funding policy must be approved by the city council.
Second?
Seconded by Jane. This motion's 4 and 5, moved by Roy, seconded by Jane. Discussion. Cindy?
So I have a question, because when we adjourned last week, we had motions on the, at the dais, which I think have been included as changes.
That's correct.
These
During the
changes,
go ahead.
all of these amendments include the changes we discussed last week and have been clarified in the motions to amend.
Yes, that's true. We didn't vote on the amendments. They were just pending when we adjourned, or when we moved on.
Right, so we don't have to withdraw those at all?
I think by adopting 4 and 5, the action would erase those, because you wouldn't have adopted them. They don't become part of the final ordinance change.
Okay, and then if I could, I just want to clarify, we spoke before this that there was the change in date needed to happen in 3 areas, and
Yes,
does this document have those changes? Because the one online didn't.
it does. And I did send out on an electronic version on Friday that contained 2 different dates. And so Mr. Latomsky caught that, and we made that correction so that one you have in front of you has the same date, 3 different places, September 1st of 2018.
Okay, and so we're voting on the motions to amend, but not on the main motion.
Correct.
Right now, yes.
That's correct. Okay, and one of the reasons we looked at the motion to amend number 5 pertaining to Appendix B is because we needed to clarify that these items, while to be regularly examined by the planned administrator, would need to then come to the city council as a recommendation before funding policy changes are made, and that is what motion to amend number 5 clarifies. All right, please call the roll on motions to amend number 4 and 5.
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Eskridge,
Yes.
Fellers,
Yes.
Gaylor Baird,
Yes.
Lamb,
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
Now, discussion on the main motion? Carl? Any others want to line up? Okay.
Okay, thank you. Well, this is something that is part of the package that the pension study group has worked on about a year ago, and it's appropriate. This would be the last thing that Trent votes on today, and appreciate the leadership of Trent and all the people that were involved with the committee work, Richard Evnan and the many other people that were dedicated their time and interest and expertise, so we'll support it.
Did I see your hand go up, John?
You did.
Okay.
Well, I have 3 general areas I'd like to comment on. It's kind of interesting. About 18 years ago, I started on city council, so in a few minutes I'll start my 19th year here. And the pension has been at the forefront all of those years. But there are 3 areas I'd like to discuss. One is reaching full funding, whereas right now we're about 80% underfunded or funded. Secondly is talk about flexibility with the pension plan as far as the annual contribution that's made. And third is we have before us an ordinance, and a suggestion I might make that I'd rather see it in resolution form. So let me go back to full funding. During the last 18 years, I have encouraged this council and the city to really get into aggressive manner of funding the pension plan. And I'm very pleased to see that over the years we have increased the contributions although a number of years we didn't make it at the level that would be actuarially prudent. So we're at this point today where we're underfunded and we're trying to take remedial efforts. The second item I want to talk about is flexibility. And in my prior life, I had an actuarial consulting firm, and I set up approximately 500 of these defined benefit plans over a 10-year period. And one of the things we did is a defined benefit plan is your true pension plan. And if it's not properly structured, it can be a very rigid plan that whatever the actuaries say, you put in, and going through the various assumptions that this is what you need to put in. But there are ways you can build flexibility into the contributions of the plan. And the city used to have those. In 2009, after the investment challenges that the nation experienced, 2 of those major flexibilities were removed. One of them was the ability to pay off that unfunded liability over between 10 and 30 years. Previously, we'd paid it off on a rolling 10-year period. The plan was changed at that time by the administration to do it over 30 years. And much like a home mortgage, if you can pay back the bank over 10 years versus pay back over 30, your payment's gonna be about twice as much over 10 years as it is over 30. And so by going immediately to the 30-year amortization, we took out that ability to, along the way, to shift back and forth. And we haven't gone back from the 30 years. Secondly, there's an element in the plan called smoothing, where you take the gains and losses, and previously we had smoothed those or averaged those over a 4-year period. The plan in 2009 was changed to do over 5 years, so that took some more flexibility out of the plan. Last year, we, along with the administration, changed the plan to reconstruct the way what had previously been called the 13th check fund, so that it became part of the plan. We still said we're going to make the commitment to the police and firefighters for that 13th check. But that was a pool of assets there of about 13 million in excess funds that we absorbed, and part of that helped reduce the contribution this year, about $4 million, and helped with budgeting. So we've taken all those flexibility elements out. We're assuming a 7.5% investment return, which is rather high in this today's economy. And I mean, we go back 40 years and say historically it's not, but the last 10 years I think shows that's rather aggressive. So when it comes to flexibility, we don't have a lot in the plan. We really need to make these rigid contributions. And I really think that we ought to try to keep flexibility. Well, this legislation, and going into my third point of do we want an ordinance versus a resolution, this ordinance, first of all, it embodies what I've professed over the last 18 years. I think it's a very good objective to fund it at the actuarially defined level, so that we don't, we make up that underfunding of 50-some million dollars and we stay at a high level. So I agree very much with the intent of the legislation. I've always maintained that. But what concerns me is if we had, and it's a big if, but if there were a calamity or a very extreme emergency and the city didn't have the resources, even if it went ahead and cut other departments, I think that it's one thing to express that we want to do that. It's another to strip ourselves of the ability, unless we went in and repealed the ordinance, which I'll get to in a minute, but that's highly unlikely we'll do because of political considerations. I think a resolution, much like we did last year or earlier on the valuation increases on property, we passed a resolution saying we intended not to use those excess dollars that we'll collect in taxes because the county assessor came back with higher property valuation. And so that's why I really would favor doing this in a resolution, because it would then give us a little flexibility so that if there was a calamitous year, we could back off. Now, it doesn't remove the liability. I mean, this pension plan is a liability on all properties in Lincoln. It's part of the assessment you have. So it is ironclad. It's an obligation we, as the city, owe to our police and firefighters. And that we keep talking about, well, I define it as past service liability. Some say unfunded actuarial liability. But it's because we didn't put enough in during past years of service for our police and firefighters that we have this deficit. So, and I said I'd get back to the legislation on it. you know, if you think about it, if we pass this ordinance, and again, I believe 100% with its focus and the reason behind it, and I compliment Mr. Fellers, he did a Herculean task with the Pension Review Committee. And there are other recommendations made that some have to be through union negotiations, others, but I think going forward with one of the proposals on a unilateral fashion, putting it in legislation, and for example, say we put it in legislation and we do get a very difficult year, we can't strip any more out of other departments and so forth, what it does is, I think it's highly unlikely this body could say, well, we're going to repeal the legislation, say we're going to fund it. I think that we've put ourselves down a one-way track that I don't mind going that direction, but if that calamity occurs, I just think that we have to have some flexibility there. Again, I guess in summary of my comments, I have supported this plan greater than anyone else because it is a commitment. It's to our public safety officers, and we need to be doing that. And past councils, unfortunately, would take the budget and they'd say, here's so much in revenues, we have so much in expenses. When they subtracted the expenses from the revenue, whatever was left is in many years, that's what went in the pension. When it should have been, here's our revenue, here's our pension, and then take that out and say, okay, now we have this much revenue left for other activities, because the pension is just like salaries to our employees. It's a #1 priority, and we haven't done that in the past. And so, to a certain extent, we and our predecessors in the council and the administrations are at fault there. So that's why I've always said, let's put in whatever we can or to meet what the actuaries say at the high end, but by losing some of those tools of flexibility that I identified earlier, it takes that away. And I'm sure you're all starry-eyed after all I said. I worked with this. And you know, I don't want to get into all the actuarial things. I mean, it's a very complicated element, but I think that we shouldn't just say the actuaries are going to tell us what we put in each year and we're going to do it. They're not elected officials. I think, too, it takes away our ability to prioritize. You know, we should be prioritizing the needs of the city, and a big need is this pension plan, and then look at other things. I think that it would give future councils an excuse that you put in the pension and there's not enough elsewhere to say, well, we've got to do this over an X department or program, so we're going to increase taxes for it because it's mandated to put in the pension. And that's not fair. That's not the right way to prioritize. So for all of those starry-eyed reasons, glossy-eyed, what have you, much as I'd support a resolution with the identical language, I just cannot support putting it in law. I think that's a mistake. Thank you.
Jane.
Well, I too wanted to commend Trent for his work on the Pension Review Committee, as well as all those others that participated on it. I think it was a very difficult task, but I think the great thing that came out of it was several really wonderful recommendations that are considered best practices by other municipalities that have the defined contribution plans that I think we need to take to heart. And certainly this funding policy is another step in the right direction that gives us still some flexibility, but it also gives us some structure and some financial and fiscal responsibility. It doesn't matter how you cut it, slice it, dice it, or package it. It is a fiscal responsibility. It'll never be an excuse for future city councils. It's a funding obligation that we have made a commitment to, and it's something that we have to continue to make progress towards, and setting up best practices that are recognized throughout the United States is one step in the right direction, and following the recommendations of our actuaries, and also looking at how they compare against other assumed rate of return for these funding sources that are pretty consistent. So I think taking everything into consideration, we still have much work to do on based on some of the recommendations that did come forward from the Pension Review Commission, that will continue to work hand in hand with law enforcement and our fire department on making sure that we deliver the safeguards that they certainly deserve for the service they provide to our community. But it's a step in the right direction, and I will support this.
Trent. Oh, wait, Cindy?
No.
Then Trent?
Yeah, okay, thank you. So I have had a hard time with this because I think the fact that this is even before us points out the importance of electing officials who are truly committed to our obligations, but understand the need to balance those obligations with whatever the citizen needs are from a financial standpoint. In other words, I have heard Councilman Camp, and he has great experience with actuary, and I understand his judgment, and I've learned to really appreciate all the expertise on this council. I also very much appreciate the intent of this and the work that was done, but I am concerned about lack of flexibility because as we looked over the figures, this pension fund was funded above 95% until 2009. And in 2009 and through last year, that's when the funding dropped considerably. And I think that rather than having to mandate, if we have an economic decline that affected the people of the city of Lincoln, the people who are paying the property taxes, and the people who are generating the income for the city. If we have a huge economic decline, but we have put ourselves into a box, what we're going to have is a double whammy. We have a pension plan that perhaps is not performing to the point that we want it to perform to, which causes a bigger number to be recommended to be put into that pension fund. And at the same time, we have people, the taxpayers, who are experiencing economic difficulty and may not be able to financially have that placed on their backs. And I think that we need a little flexibility, and it really points out the fact that this is before us. It points out the need for fiscal responsibility and carefully electing officials that'll truly be committed to the obligation, and at the same time understanding that they need to balance the needs of the constituents and the citizens that are paying for all of this. So while I appreciate very much the efforts of this, I would support a resolution. I can't support boxing in future councils and the administration in this particular ordinance.
I'll go ahead and say something here. The idea of saying that we need to prioritize or, give city councils the ability to, and flexibility to prioritize is a nice idea, but history has shown that city councils have not been able to do that. And that's the whole intent behind this. The flexibility people are talking about is flexibility to do the wrong thing. I think the numbers I've seen say 13 out of the last 25 years, the pension fund was not funded adequately. We underfunded it. We meaning the city government. So that's one point. We don't need flexibility to do the wrong thing. We need to constrain ourselves to do the right thing. In any event, talking about Cindy's point about putting this on the backs of the taxpayers, it already is. Regardless of whatever else happens, this is completely on the back of the property owners in the city of Lincoln. And this, I think, is a plan that means that if there are hard times in the future, it is going to be less impactful on people in the long run than allowing us to not fully fund the pension in an emergency situation.
Trent.
So when we looked at the best practices in the pension committee, this was one of the ones that stood out. And the reason that it stood out was because the states that had this policy in place were not 60% funded, were not 70% funded. They were 80 and 90% funded. South Dakota, for example, has a pension fund. They fund it above 100% every single year. And granted, yes, there could be some years in the future where it will be harder to meet that benchmark. But if we don't meet that benchmark, we amortize every dollar that we don't send to the pension at 7% over 30 years. And when enacting this ordinance, we will amortize any future or any other liabilities over 20 years at 7%. So we need this, and we need it. We need to do this now because we need to lock in and make sure that we make that commitment. Otherwise, we are going to be paying a heck of a lot more for this plan over term. And we owe it to our police and firefighters to fund this pension, and to make sure that we're doing that for them so that the money is there for them. It's a hell of a lot easier to have it at 100% than to play catch up like we've been doing, and to do the types of policies that we've been changing at the 13th check. So I appreciate the fact that the mayor's office, Mayor Beitler, working with me on putting together the pension committee, Rick Hoppy, the city law department, Paula Tomsky, Doug McDaniel, all the guys that spent time working on this and putting it together, because we're not out of the woods yet, and we need to be vigilant on this. We need to keep our eye on it. But the 3 changes that we've made on this pension plan, I think, are putting us on the right track. And hopefully we'll get up to 95 and 100% funded. But it's going to take a long road for us to do that. And the more money we put in today, the less money that we're going to have to play catch up on later. Thank you.
And I'll just take my turn to say thank you to you, Trent, for working with the mayor's office and citizens who gave their time voluntarily to shine a light on what is the fiscally responsible thing for us to do. This funding policy is a fiscally responsible thing to do, not only to meet the obligations we have to people who put themselves in harm's way to protect us, but also to future generations, because these long-term costs won't necessarily be paid by us, but will be paid by future generations. So for the very patient folks in the audience, like Deacon and Harris and Josiah and Anya and Evelina and Turner and Cleo, this one's for you too. Please call the roll.
Camp,
No.
Christensen,
Yes.
Eskridge,
Yes.
Fellers,
Yes.
Gaylor Baird,
Yes.
Lamb,
No.
Raybold.
Yes.
Motion carried 5-2. And then I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
I would, we should let
maybe-
Mr. Fellers do that.
I'll move adjournment, and I'll also say that it has been a pleasure serving with all of you. I think we've become really good friends over the last 2 and 4 years. It's been an amazing experience for me to sit up here with you guys and grow this city and appropriate monies for cool stuff like building roads and parks and seeing all the amazing things happen in this city. I also want to thank my family, who quite a few of them are here, and these are the people that have kept me going through these 4 years. Picked up kids when I had to be sitting here listening to John talk and Jane talk and Roy and Cindy ask questions. Not that that's a bad thing, but you guys have made this and made it so that I was able to sit up here and do this job for 4 years, and it's been absolutely fantastic to be a part of this. I was thinking back to when I wanted to do this when I was younger, and I think I was maybe in kindergarten when I decided that I wanted to be a Marine and maybe run for office someday. And I'm 36 and I checked both of those boxes. I need to think of some new goals. But I just want to thank my family for being there for me, and for all the citizens of Lincoln over the past year who have come up to me and said, thank you for your service. It's meant a lot. It's been, I've really felt like people have noticed, and that they appreciate the fact that we're here every Monday doing this work. And I'm happy to see that you guys will be moving on with this, and I'll be around, and you got my number, you can give me a call. So thank you very much.
Second.
Moved by Trent and seconded by Roy. Please call the roll.
Camp,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Eskridge,
Yes.
Fellers,
It's kind of my thing to vote no on adjournment, but I'm going to vote yes.
Gaylor Baird,
Yes.
Lamb,
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
We are adjourned for this moment.
All right, now we got to play. Musical chairs.
Move my junk out of the way.
Well, we gotta let the mayor come up and do his thing. We're gonna be up here, I think. No, we're moving seats.
Any, if you want to come on?
I'll be around. Put your stuff down here. You're gonna be sitting way down there. Nameplate's over there. That's okay.
Actually, I'll do the oath of office
Oath of
first.
office first?
Yes.
Okay.
If you'd raise your right hands, repeat after me.
Right in the middle. Okay. Right.
I do solemnly swear or affirm
Solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Nebraska,
and the Constitution of the State of Nebraska,
and that I will faithfully and impartially
and that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
of the office of City Council Member
of the office of City Council Member
in and for Lincoln, Nebraska,
in and for Lincoln, Nebraska,
according to law
according to law
and to the best of my ability.
and to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Be seated. Okay, Benny, you're gonna sit at the end there.
All right.
I do. You're gonna sit right here sit there for now.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me just welcome you quickly to this joyous occasion. We're in a transition that will be very quick, and we'll pass to the new city council for the city of Lincoln. And I have the distinct privilege of having a little part in a small but important transition, and that's the part of helping to elect a new chair of the city council. And upon that election, he or she will take the dais here. Having said that, I am going to plead for just a couple of seconds of personal privilege, in the sense that I too would like to say thank you to Councilman Fellers. Trent has been an outstanding representative for the people of the city. He's been conscientious. He's been smart about decisions. He's added a lot to the dialogue of what the good of the city is. Beyond that, and most of all, he's a very fine person and a very civil person. And I'm very glad, Trent, that you passed my way. And on behalf of all the citizens of Lincoln, who I'm very sure are glad that you chose to represent them, I want to say thank you on behalf of all of them again. You boys have a great dad. You better be listening to him. All right. With that, then, again, the order of business is to elect a new chair of the city council, and I would at this time open the floor for nominations.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Chair, I would nominate Roy Christensen for the office of chair of the city council.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded
Cindy
that
beat
Councilman Christensen be nominated for chair. Are there any other nominations? Going once, twice, three times? All right, seeing none, I will close the nominations. And Madam Clerk, I think it's the tradition to immediately call the roll.
You are correct. Camp,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Esper,
Yes.
Gaylor Baird,
Yes.
Lamb,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Schob.
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0.
All right. They do it like this, I think, Roy. There you go. Congratulations.
Sir? And Jane will be here.
Not-
Otherwise, that we're all in our proper seats.
Not yet.
Oh,
Thank you.
I can't forget who you are.
You need to be right here.
Audio. Do we have audio?
No, we don't have audio.
Okay.
Okay.
Speak loudly.
As my first order of business, I will entertain nominations for the election of vice chair.
Mr. President, Mr. Chair, I'd like to nominate Jane Raybold to serve as vice chair of the
Second.
It's been nominated and second for the Jane Raybold. Do we have any other nominations? All right, please call the roll.
Camp,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Eskridge.
Yes.
Gaylor Baird,
Yes.
Lamb,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Schob.
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0.
All right, very good. Let's move on to our first item on the agenda, please.
All right, that would be our public hearing consent agenda, items 1 and 2. There are no items to vote on.
Very good.
Next
Next
then would
item.
be our public hearing resolutions. Item 3 is a resolution in appreciation of Trent Fellers for his service to the city as a member of the city council.
All right, this requires the council to suspend the rules to have an introduction and public hearing and vote today on this issue. So,
Mis-
I need a motion here.
Mr. Chair, I would move that we suspend the rules.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. Any comments? Please call the roll, and I'll remind you we need 5 votes minimum.
Oh, we're in trouble.
Camp,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Eskridge,
Yes.
Gaylor Baird,
Yes.
Lamb,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Schob.
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0.
Okay, now on the main motion, do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I think I'd move on behalf of all of my colleagues, the item 17R-124, committing and expressing our appreciation to Trent Fellers for his service on the city council.
Second?
Moved by John, seconded by Jane. Discussion.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. On the wrong side of things. You gotta get used to this. 4 years ago, when Trent was elected, he reached out to me, and we had a nice glass of tea, and that was a great moment. It really signified an important start and opportunity to work together over these 4 years, and I appreciate that. I appreciate you for your hard work, the diligence that you gave to the task, and for your always searching to find that middle ground, trying to build consensus among us, which hasn't always been an easy thing to do. You've been a great colleague, and I appreciate that. I know last summer in particular, when we were here and your boys were on the ball fields, that was tough for you, so enjoy those days.
Cindy?
Thank you. So I'm one of the newer additions, and so 2 years ago I came, and fortunately, and Trent was elected as chair, and I appreciated so much his leadership and his willingness to take my phone calls just about any hour of the day. And trust me, I did make a lot of phone calls, and so I have really appreciated you, Trent, very much, and thank you for your service on behalf of myself and the citizens of Lincoln, and I appreciate just the opportunity to have a microphone to say so. And I'm going to just blame you for anything that goes wrong from now on, because you're not here to fix it. So
Okay.
thank you.
Jane? Then we'll just work on down.
Okay, well, I too am very grateful to have had this opportunity to work with Trent. You are a real leader, and I think we all tested your mettle when you were the chair and you had to deal with some, I think it's fair to say, tumultuous budget matters that were before you, but you were steadfast, you were calm, you were professional, you were courteous, and you are a terrific role model to so many out in our community but really to the two most important young people in your charge, your two amazing sons. And so you have made them incredibly proud. You have made us all very proud to have worked with you. And certainly, I've enjoyed it a tremendous amount. I've learned a lot from you, and I really do appreciate your hard work on the Pension Review Committee, because that was a tough task to take on. You did it gladly. I don't know why, but you said, I'll do it. And I think it's that can-do attitude, and never shying away from a challenge. Goodness knows, we threw a lot at you, and being the youngster on the city council, you did incredibly well, and it was a real pleasure to work with you and an honor. So, and I'm really going to miss you, and I say that sincerely from the bottom of my heart.
John?
Yes, well, I don't want to remind you how many years I've been up here, but regardless, I've worked with quite a few city council members over those years, and everybody on the city council works a lot harder than I think what the general public recognizes. There are so many committees, other meetings. We're just not here on Monday afternoons. Trent worked exceptionally diligently and really gave what I'd call 120% in his 4 years on the city council. He just kept doing it. He was very studious, was very pleased to share the excitement he had, the passion he had to serve the citizens of Lincoln. And, you know, Trent, I just commend you very much. Known you for many years, and we just hope that you have a lot of other bucket items there in the future, and perhaps community service, city service, elected service will be one of those. You're a very good individual, and I admire, you know, you've had a challenging time with your sons, your family. Jill has been a good mate for you, and I know with the various businesses that you're working on, that's a very taxing situation, and so it's difficult. And so I encourage and challenge the public, if you're considering serving on this body someday, review what Trent Fellers did, because he has been a good role model and will continue to be. Thank you, Trent.
Larry?
Yeah, I want to start by thanking Jill and your kids for sharing you with us and with the city, because it's a huge sacrifice for the families involved, and your commitment to your family is part of the reason you're sitting where you are today. So thank them, and thank you for your commitment to your family. You've been a wonderful councilman, and you were a fantastic chair. I just wanted to, as the outgoing chair, salute you as someone who was not only efficient and kept things moving, but who was collegial and fair. And it's a tough job, but you did that well. There's also this funny dynamic on council where 4 people sit in districts and never face each other in an election, but 3 of us who are at large eventually end up in competition with each other if we run. And before you announced that you weren't running again, you worked with me on a piece of legislation. We worked together on something we were both interested in, the Open Data Initiative. And that was one of the highlights of my first 4 years in office, because we literally sat side by side at a desk back there, marking up legislation together. Something we both cared about, even though, and setting aside any notions of competition in the future. It was kind of the best of, I think, what bipartisan work represents. So I will very much treasure that memory. I will also miss your eye rolls when testimony and questions go a little too long. And your emojis with sunglasses on the smiley face. Maybe you'll keep those coming. I hope you will. You added so much to this council and so much wonderful leadership and service to the city. Your kids can be real proud, as can we all. Thank you for your service.
Would you like to say something?
Yeah, as the rookie here, the new guy, I want to echo all the sentiments of my colleagues to my left. I started coming to city council meetings. Trent was one of the first people that came out from the dais and greet me and encourage me. He's offered assistance and support over and over again. He's set the bar pretty high. And the other cliche, there's some big shoes to fill. But I have his phone number, and I'm going to probably contact him regularly. But thank you for your service.
Before we vote, we have a gift. And before I comment, we have a gift. So Trent, would you come forward to the microphone?
And his son.
And your sons too. Send them on up for fun, yes, because there's something for them too.
We're gonna take pictures. This is from the entire
Oh, great.
Guys?
Oh.
All right. It's a pie.
Fidget spinners.
That's the start of this meeting.
And it is?
It's a clock. Thank you.
Very nice.
More than welcome. So let me conclude before we have our vote by making a comment. First of all, in honor of you, Trent, I will keep it short. Okay?
Thank you.
But I wish you well in all your future endeavors, and you're a natural leader, and I look forward to seeing you serve again in public, in elected office. The Journal-Star once referred to us as a duo, and sometimes we became known as Troy. And today, with this meeting, Troy is officially retired. Thank you. Thank you, Trent.
Yay.
Teresa, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Camp?
Yes.
Christensen?
Yes.
Eskridge?
Yes.
Gaylor Baird?
Yes.
Lamb?
Yes.
Raybold?
Yes.
Schob?
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. That concludes our public hearing. No items to vote on. Resolutions first reading are items 4 through 6, and ordinances first reading are items 7 through 9. Our one item on pending list date certain will come off and be on for the 22nd.
Okay, before I entertain a motion to adjourn, we'll remind everybody here that there will be a short reception in the room behind all of you. We're immediately following this meeting.
Mr. Chair, I would move for adjournment. I'd also like to note that we will be taking a holiday for Memorial Day on the 29th, so we'll meet next week. It'll be an evening meeting on May 22nd, and then we'll resume in June with our regularly scheduled meetings.
I'll second that.
Moved by John, seconded by Jane. Please call the roll.
Camp?
Yes.
Christensen?
Yes.
Eskridge?
Yes.
Gaylor Baird?
Yes.
Lamb?
Yes.
Raybold?
Yes.
Schob?
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
We are adjourned.
Great. Congratulations, sir, on your re-election. I never officially shook your hand.
Congratulations to you.
Welcome, Benny, officially.
Yes.
Right. 5 second count, so we're good.
Thank you, Jane.